Welcome to the United Leukodystrophy presents Caregivers for Adult Patient Support with Margaret Halter from the ULF and Roger Locy.
Hello.
Go for it, Roger.
Going for it.
Okay.
Hello, my name's Roger Locy, and my wife Joanne and I live just north of Syracuse in central New York, about 7 miles from Lake Ontario. Joanne has adrenal myeloneuropathy, and when this all started, we met in 1995. We were married in 1998, and couldn't spell leukodystrophy until sometime in the 2000s, probably around 2005, was when Joanne found out that she has adrenal myeloneuropathy. That was a sort of a painful process in trying to find out what was causing her problems. All she knew is she was falling down and going from doctor to doctor. But finally, going to Strong University in Rochester, New York, we found out what the problem was. And with that, ended up going to Kennedy Krieger in Baltimore. And they then put us on to the United Leukodystrophy Foundation and the different conferences, which we found to be very beneficial. For caregiving, I'm fortunate that Joanne is very mobile. She is in a wheelchair. Our journey has gone from where she walked to where she walked with a cane, then from that to forearm crutches, from forearm crutches to manual wheelchair to power wheelchair, and that's basically where we are now. The good news is for us, on her last checkup at Kennedy Krieger, they said that they believe that her disease has progressed as far as it will. And unfortunately, it won't get better. However, it won't get at least a lot worse. So, some of our challenges for me as a caregiver is we live in upstate New York. And by living in upstate New York, 6-7 miles from Lake Ontario, which is a snow machine, so we live in the snow belt. That is one of the biggest challenges for mobility and getting around, is dealing with all the snow, ice, that type of thing. I guess for my introduction, that's pretty much what I have. So I'll have Margaret now introduce herself.
Okay, I got the mic off. So yesterday I didn't go as into much detail when John and I were first introduced. So I'll kind of do what Roger has just shared. We live in between Cleveland and Mansfield, a little town called Ollisburg. I'm sitting out on my front porch right now because it's actually one of the ways that I can kind of decompress and look into taking care of myself a little bit as a caregiver with John. So we've been married for 37 years. My husband was diagnosed, shortly, maybe 6 years after we were married. Journey has been challenging at times, humorous at times. You met my husband. He can be quite a funny guy. He has the drive, probably 150% more than a able-bodied person has. His disabilities don't stop him. He does what he is capable of doing, and if he's not capable of doing something, he tries to figure out how he can become capable of doing something. So, and anyway, we live on a farm. John stays very, very active. As a caregiver, I'm fortunate also. We have modified our home to fit his needs. We have a lift to get him to several different floors in the house. We have what's called a wet shower area, which is wonderful. If you don't know what that is, look it up and see if you can get some help to modify your bathroom to help in those situations like showering and toileting. John takes care of all of his personal needs. The only thing I help him with that's been a difficult thing for him this year is putting on his socks and shoes. So we haven't kind of looked at any kind of adaptive equipment that might help him do those things. But he's very capable. He went from walking kind of with a dragging foot to one cane to two canes. And he stayed with two canes for a long time. So if you know us from the conference, he fought that fight really wonderfully, staying upright and trying to stay active and trying to stay healthy so he could continue walking. And then about 2000, probably 14, 15, we started using those little scooters. So long distances or on the farm here when he had to walk on uneven ground, he would use the scooter. And we were blessed. So he's full-time in a wheelchair and manages his transfers and everything else. I think that's probably it in a nutshell as far as what people see as far as caregivers with our spouses. It's a little different than taking care of a child. I want John to maintain his independence and he wants to maintain his independence. So we have our daily struggles of me probably helping a little bit too much and John really wanting to, conquer some of these obstacles on his own. So we brainstorm a lot. He's got the mind of an engineer. He's adapted tons of equipment on our farm so he can continue getting on tractors and doing heavy equipment jobs and just scaring his wife half to death. So just kidding. No, not really. But it's been, I miss today. I really miss the connection that I'm able to actually see people. So I'm praying and hoping next year becomes a in-person conference for us so we can make those connections again and have other spouses. We had probably 6 or 7 caregiver spouses in our group last year. So that's kind of an intro. This is not I got all the answers type of thing. This is just sort of open for questions. If we have anybody in the room that is a caregiver of an adult, even if you're taking care of your son or your spouse, if you have questions for us, go ahead and shoot. And Roger and I will try to do the best we can.
Yes, I guess for my introduction, I can also add while we're waiting for questions. We were fortunate. The house that we originally lived in after we were married was a 2-story colonial that was about 125 years old, very narrow hallways, lots of steps, all of the things that for someone with mobility issues, you probably wouldn't want to deal with. We were fortunate that before Joanne started going into a wheelchair that we built a house, a ranch, with ramps at each door, wide hallways, open format, accessible bathrooms, everything that would really make it easier for her. Now, after living in the house for a while, we see things that we say, boy, if we would have made that laundry room just a little bit wider, it would have made it so she could turn around easier in her wheelchair. But Joanne is very also self-sufficient. She takes care of all of her personal needs. I try to help her out, as Margaret said, probably I offer more than she'd like because she is very independent. And when I say, well, let me get that off the top shelf, she gives me a look like, I can't do that. But that which is a good thing. It is a fight to go, they don't want to go to the wheelchair. The other thing, and I know that the Halters also have this available for them, we have a VMI converted van that has a ramp on it, and so Joanne can drive her wheelchair, power chair into the van, transfer over to either the driver's seat or the passenger seat, and away she goes. She has enough mobility in her legs that she can still use the pedals, so she doesn't need to use hand controls yet. But that is an option. She needed that. We could add that in the van.
Yep.
So,
That's great. Yeah, John has hand controls on his truck, and of course that giant lift to get his chair up in the air.
mhm.
I think you have a question from Luann.
Joanne, I'm looking at it. Yes, Luann asked that the doctors of KKK said that Joanne's condition has progressed as far as it would for now. How do we know that? I believe the way that we know that is because of their testing. We usually go there once a year. We haven't been this year because of the virus and stuff, but so they've got baseline that they use, and then they look at her testing every year that she goes there, look at her response, look at her strength, those type things. And they did some additional tests last year where they did nerve testing where they sort of poked holes in her leg to do biopsies to check out the nerves and different things. And that was the result of it, which we'll see. We don't know for sure, but that's what it looks like right now.
So there's a question out there for Roger, for the two of us. What has been the most challenging part of being a caregiver? And I think for me is to watch that daily challenge of your spouse. See, I'm going to get emotional now. It's hard. And you want to take the pain away, and you want them to have a full and active life. And they do, but it's something that you can't fix. So as a caregiver, I constantly tell myself, okay, I have to stay healthy, number one. I need to do things for myself to manage those times when it is really stressful. John's doing excellent right now. 2 years ago, we maintained almost 6 months in a hospital battling UTIs. So there are times when it's just a lot more intense, and you think that it can't possibly get any worse, can it? And it does. But right now, it can't possibly get any better. We've had a great year. Whether it's those unknowns that we talk with AMN, those plateaus that our adults hit, and they used to talk about those years ago at the leukodystrophies, that you have some bad years and all of a sudden you plateau out. I remember Hugo telling us that. So this is so far been a good year for John. He works at everything, and I think that would for me, that's the challenging part of the caregiver, to balance that emotional tie you have with your spouse, that you don't want to see them sick, but you deal with it. You get up every day and you face the day together, basically. So cheers, Roger.
I remember when I retired the first time, and after that I took a contracting job that I had about an hour and 15-minute commute in the morning and another hour and 15 minutes in the afternoon. I was fortunate. I worked 4 days, 10-hour work days plus the commute. 2 weeks, or about a week to 2 weeks before I started my first day on that job, I was sitting at my computer, and our steps going upstairs in that old house, at that time we hadn't moved yet, was right at my back, and I heard this crash bang. And Joanne was coming down the stairs, and she missed a step with her crutch and went down about 8 or 10 steps and the problem with the disease is she didn't know if she hurt herself or not. And so we were lucky. We got in to see her doctor that day. They took x-rays and they verified she didn't have any broken bones. She had some soft tissue injuries, part of it from where the crutch jammed up and hit her in the rib cage a little bit. And so then 2 weeks later, I was on my way to work, and it's like, so did Joanne make it down the steps today? You know, something that you have to think about the whole time. We ordered a chairlift so that she could ride the chairlift up and down the steps, because that was always the most challenging thing for her anyway. She had to reserve her energy, you know, try to save her energy as much as possible, and going up and down those steps every day was really a struggle. So she'd start her day by going down the steps, hopefully one step at a time. And then at the end of the day, when she was probably already tired, would have to go back up the steps to go to our bedroom. So that was one of the great advantages. Well, we ended up getting the chairlift, and we used that for a period of time at that house until we did build the new house, which was a ranch. That now she doesn't have that issue. And we took the chairlift and put it going down into the basement so she can also get to the basement for storage in her new house. But, you know, it's those type of things that you worry about all the time, and you try to do whatever you can to have something in place in case something happens. But, you know, how do you know?
This is true.
True.
I totally agree with you, and I understand what you just said, Roger. Okay, we have another question. How do you navigate self-care and care for other family members while being a caregiver? Well, I guess to address this one is, I don't remember how I got through the grade school and teenager years, but John was more able to do things. So again, it was parenting and living with a spouse that had a diagnosis, but the hard medical challenges didn't start for John until probably into his late 40s. Maybe some things occurred, and by that time our kids were in college. So navigating, taking care of that stuff as adults and as two parents, we did it like any other family would do it. I don't think there was too much of a hardship there. I think the hardest part is, like Roger said, the unknowns, because, you know, I'll leave for work. I work full time still, and I'm thinking the same thing, Roger. What's John going to get into today? And is he going to call me if he gets into a fix he can't get out of? So as we progressed with some of the difficulties, the mobility difficulties, we've got a pretty good long line of phone numbers that we can call. And our neighbors are great out here in the country. They drop whatever they're doing and they will come and assist John out of his pickle. If he can't get anybody, he calls me, and I am 15 minutes away. I've got a great boss. I got a great job. I used to have an hour-and-a-half commute one way. I left that job close to 8 years ago and got something closer because of wanting just to be a little bit close for those instances that come up. But I guess that's it for me as far as navigating being a caregiver, and it talks about self-care too. And for any of you guys that are watching that have Facebook, go ahead and click on my Facebook page. You'll know what I do for self-care. It's called gardening. I love it. It's therapy. I'm not a farm girl, never was born or raised a farm girl, but I married a farmer and I've become one graciously, and I love it. It's great meditation to get out and garden, and it's good physical work. And it gives us time away from our spouse too, because part of self-care is we need that. We need a little bit break. We need some time. I'm also a big guru of kind of healthy eating. John looks at his plate sometimes and says, "What is this?" And I'll just say, "Just try it. It's good for you." And I get the look, but he'll try it. He's good about that. It's usually vegetables, something with vegetables, but that's another way of self-care. Take care of your health. You have to take care of you in order to take care of the one that you love.
I guess the one thing for me is that one of the things after both of us getting older, both Joanne and I, and so one of the things that can be a problem is all of a sudden when she's transferring, her leg will go out, and she has no forewarning or anything that'll tell her, and her leg will go out, and she'll be on the floor. Used to be between the two of us, we could get her back up and get her in her chair or in bed or wherever she was trying to go at that time. Now, as we get older and things have happened and backs don't work quite as well and that type of thing, I found myself in the situation where Joanne fell in the bathroom and I could not get her up. We ended up calling 911. They came over. This big dude came in and looked at Joanne and says, "Throw your arms around me, darling." And he picked her up and sat her in her wheelchair. I couldn't do that. So then we looked at different things like Hoya lifts. They are big and bulky, and they use straps and harnesses and all that type of thing. And we found a device that's called an Indie Lift. That's INDEELIFT, one word. You can Google it and you can see what it is. And it's basically a battery operated platform. It's good for about, the battery charge is good for about 5 lifts. So if you lose power, you can still use it. They scoot over onto the lift, use the remote, and it raises them up to wheelchair level or chair level, whichever, and they can then transfer over to their chair. And thank goodness we haven't had to use it too many times, but it's certainly better than having to call 911 and have ambulance folks come over and help you transfer, finish the transfer wherever they were going. And that has really been good. It's been something that worked well for us.
That's interesting, Roger, because lately again, we remodeled the house, and after the fact, now 4 years down the road, we're thinking, boy, we should have possibly put a track in. So John and I have had events. It always happens in the shower. We laugh, but that's where people fall, in the shower. If he's out in the living room, we can usually get him to a piece of furniture, and then I can help him at least steady himself so he can, we can do a lift, like a 1, 2, 3 lift. But you're right, I can't lift him either. Bridging I'm still under 60. John's over 60. He's probably going to kill me now that I said that, but we're bridging our age too. So those muscles I had in my 30s are long gone. I can't pick them up. So we've called the squad too. The squad's been called when he's been sick, and I can't even possibly think about getting him into a car. So for your communities where you live, that is a service. So remember that. Don't think you're bothering anybody. That's a service. And I would much rather have someone capable of picking John up and not hurting him further, and not hurting me. I have to remember I have to be here to for the long haul to take care of him too. So I think we had some other questions on the other side that I'm going to click over and we kind of talked about what things work and what doesn't work. That's kind of broad spectrum kind of for me, because it's kind of Roger, but sometimes you have to try it first to see if it's going to work or not. And then if it doesn't work, then we're like, yeah, we're not going to do that again. We have a question here from Veronica John. She says her challenge is with her 31-year-old son who has the inability to stand, and they can't get him into a vehicle. So I don't know what state you're from, but I'm hoping that you've tapped into some services that are at least locally county services for you. Sometimes they can help you, especially if your son is on Medicare or Medicaid. It would be Medicaid at this point. He's 31. They might be able to get some devices like a gait belt that you can be taught how to do a proper transfer into a vehicle, or a proper transfer from a chair to a wheelchair, or just to possibly get him to stand. If he has no ability to stand, then you're probably going to need something, what Roger was talking about, a Hoyer lift, or something, a track system that could possibly help you. But into a car is a struggle, because the cars, once you open up the door, they're not, John can't get into my Subaru. I have a Subaru. He's 6'2". So it's very difficult for him to pull the chair up. He can stand. And then once he goes to like kind of try to sit, lift his leg up and get the car. So he has to back into the car. And it's crazy. Now his truck, we have the lift, and he's able to get himself into his own vehicle. Bed to wheelchair, there's a transfer. I want to say it's like a slide board. You can Google that, but they work fairly good. There's times where in my job, I work with individuals with disabilities. So I do those transfer boards work wonderfully from chair to bed. Make sure you have a chair that you can take the arm off the one side, and the transfer can be pretty smooth that way. I don't know if you want to add anything. I'll mute.
There was a comment here from Holly saying that physical therapists are great at teaching proper transfer methods, and they can give you training, which is another good thing that you can do. You know, if you have a physical therapist that you use, they can help a lot. I know different hospitals. Kennedy Krieger is very good. Their physical therapy. Actually, there's a session tomorrow afternoon where Jen is going to provide a physical therapist session, and they may have some pointers there for transferring and that type of thing. We're both fairly fortunate in that Joanne and John are both very, I don't want to use stubborn, I guess independent's a better word, right, Margaret?
No, I'll use stubborn. He's stubborn and independent.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. For getting things done and wanting to do things themselves, but you know, sometimes we all need a little help. So I try to, as Margaret said, try to take care of myself as much as I can. But you know, things happen. I've had hip replaced, and we're fortunate. My son came down and went through the first week, which is the critical week after that. I've had carotid artery surgery, so you know, different things like that, and we managed to get through it. And you know, you do what you have to do. I think the other thing that can be frustrating for people, when we go on the road, finding hotels that are truly accessible, because they'll tell you that they have an accessible room. One of the keys that I always ask for and insist upon is a room with a roll-in shower. Typically, if we get a roll-in shower, particularly, I'm pretty sure John would need that also. Not going to make it over the lip of a bathtub. And so having the roll-in shower, if they have that in the room, usually everything else, you know, they'll have grab bars, they'll have the other things that you need in the room. And I guess we bat about 500. About half of the time when you go to the hotel, you've got your reservation, it's supposed to have a roll-in shower, and when you get there, they say, oh, we gave that room away already. And then it's a matter of, well, what do they have? What can you actually use? And I know, like going to the ULF conference, it's a conference for people that have these issues. So, you know, when you go to the hotel, all the rooms are already taken and reserved. So that, you know, that's one of the things you have to sort of look at and say, okay, so how can we deal with this? When we went to the conference in Omaha, the second year, we stayed in a hotel that was 2 blocks away from the Embassy Suites where the conference was going on. And the reason we did was because the Embassy Suites, the first year of the conference, booked a lot of people with rooms, but then didn't have the rooms available that really met all the needs. So we went 2 blocks to the Garden Suite or Garden Inn down the road. So, you know, those are things you have to look forward to and think about. The other thing in our area, like I said, we live 7 miles from Lake Ontario. We live in what they call the snow belt. We like to say that snow is measured in feet, not inches. And when you're trying to take a power wheelchair or even a manual wheelchair and get through snow, you have to be careful about where you're going, know where you're going, and know if they have, you know, they take care of their parking lot and they take care of the area, you know, so that you can get around. Those as a caregiver, those are some of the things that I look at more than trying to take care of the personal care of Joanne, because she can do that herself. Do you have anything on that, Margaret?
No, I like so agree. It's almost sometimes our trips have been comedy routines because of the obstacles, the challenges that we run into. You know, like I'll book something online, and I know I've clicked the roll-in shower, and just like you, oh, we gave that room away, and I'm like, yeah, we even got offered a suite once. I'm like, that's not going to help. That's great. Thanks for the suite, but you know, that doesn't, you know, help our obstacles that we have. John's chair sits a little bit higher, so sometimes we haven't done this because of COVID, but when we went out to eat, he likes to transfer over and sit at the table, and that's always kind of a humorous thing to watch too, because they want to take the chair and go put it somewhere because of the fire code. I'm usually like, yeah, I got this. You know, where would you like me to park it? And I'll take it for you. So, but yeah, you got to keep your sense of humor too. I didn't mention this at the beginning, but those of you that have been to the conference that know John and I, yeah, we've had challenges, but Lord, let's just keep it light, because it is what it is. I love my husband, hate this disease, and I hope in my children's lifetime that we have major changes on the horizons to help. We don't meet a whole lot of AMN couples at the conference. It's difficult. That's the other challenge with the conference. It's difficult sometimes to get the couple to the conference, whether they're working or whether they just can't make it up to Chicago. So I'm so hoping next year is in person, and that we can get a little boost with the virtual. It's different. You're in your home. John has a session later. I'll be sitting on it just kind of briefly to do an intro, but if you're an AMN guy in this listening along, or any of the adults that are affected, try to join that room. Ask the questions. I'll be helping them with that. But life is beautiful. I'm not going to say anything else. Life is beautiful. God has blessed us. We have our challenges, but we are working through them.
You learn a lot by going to the conferences and talking to other people, and everybody's situation is different. There aren't two that are exactly alike. Joanne and I have been very fortunate in that we can have a house that is, you know, a ranch house that is handicap accessible. It's a lot easier to build one than it is to remodel an old one and try to make it accessible. Moving walls and stuff like that can be a real challenge. The same way with our transportation. We have a van that has a ramp, you know, wheelchair, chairs that accommodate us. So we are fortunate also. That van, I thought when we first got it that I was never going to see my wife again. I thought that maybe I would end up having for dinner was she would drive by and throw the McDonald's bag out the window, because she had a whole new freedom when she ended up getting that van. and now was able not to have to rely on somebody to help her get the wheelchair in the back of the car, you know, all of those type things. She could do it herself. She could get into the van and go, and she did. So, oh, there's John.
I don't move, but you'll hear my dogs barking too. So.
So, do we have any questions? What was the other thing? Oh, the other real interesting thing is handicap parking. Joanne has gotten to the point where, and this has happened to her in downtown Oswego. She will go to meet her girlfriend for lunch or something. She will get a handicap spot that has the crosshatch area on both sides of it. She will go into the restaurant, and when she comes out, somebody has parked in the crosshatch area, the no parking section, right where her ramp comes out. And she can't deploy the ramp to get into the car to leave. So she pulls out her cell phone and calls 911. More times than not, the person that has parked there is also handicapped. And sometimes they have the feeling that, well, this is a handicapped spot. So even though it isn't the spot itself, I'm entitled to be able to park there. And so they'll park there. Usually what happens is the police officer that comes to respond to the 911 call will get in the van and back it out so she can deploy the ramp and she can get in it and go. And they usually refuse to write a ticket for a car that has a handicap placard on it. So, you know, everybody should be thinking about that there's a reason there are crosshatched areas. And I know you can go into any grocery store and see the way people park across kitty. Sometimes it's almost like they're parallel parking, you know, in a vertical spot. It happens, and I guess you just have to deal with it.
Those are those humorous moments. We've had a few. John's able to kind of straddle some of the parking lots, and he has a different type of hoist. So when he brings it down, we seldom have people parking there. We only had motorcycles at one time, and they parked actually on the other side, which the lift wasn't on the other side, but I could barely get in my door. They were packed. They were parked in the crosshatch and then the ramp to go into a restaurant. I was like, okay, you know, I get it. And everybody in the restaurant was like shaking their heads, and
other people get more mad.
Yeah, the restaurant hostess or whatever went and got those motorcycle guys and said, "Hey, please move." And they, you know, they were embarrassed when they came out. But for the most part, you know, again, those are those little things that we just kind of like, wow. But you get through it. You really do. There is another question over here, and I wanted to. I think Holly Durst is asking you, Roger, what your funding resources were, but I may be able to address that because, Holly, I think you're from Ohio, if I've got the right Holly. I would be looking into services through OOD, which is Ohio Opportunities. Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. And again, see if this is for your son or if it's for you, some sort of connection with Jobs and Family Services to see if you qualify for some assistance.
Yes, in our case, we ended up buying, as I said, we are fortunate. I had a very good job, and we bought the van. And I know that most of the time, if you go to any of the state government listings, or Google them, you can find areas that talk about disabilities and assistance for disabled people. And you may be able to find some grants or other things that would help.
Yeah, it's not an overnight process. So once you start looking into these resources, make sure that you understand that it could be a year and a half before all those pieces fall together. It's unfortunate, but everybody's got a piece of the pie, so to speak, as when it comes to those services being qualified for and what you can get. But I know I'll be talking to you next week, Holly, so maybe I can point you in the right direction.
I got a suggestion on those people that are parking in that scratch part. A friend of mine, he got a cone, and when he got out and he put the ramp in, he put the cone here on the ground, and on the little side of the cone it says needed for loading my wheelchair up, and he just sets this little cone out there.
Yeah, Joan,
it works.
Yeah, Joan did that too when she had a. So he's talking about if you have a side loader. And do you have a side loader, Roger? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you have that side loader, friends of ours that put a cone out there that says, you know, don't block this area. I deploy a ramp here and load my chair. So.
Yeah, I just put a little orange cone, and somebody's going to steal it. Yeah, you know, there's always a clown. You know.
Make sure you have 2 cones.
Yeah, but 99 times out of 100 that works. It's just people not thinking.
Yeah. Gives me an opportunity to practice my swearing.
Or practice not to swear.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm supposed to be doing, but my job.
We all can't have my patience.
I did. So people on here do know that you're stubborn because I said you're stubborn. So I didn't say anything.
That's what keeps you going with this. I mean, Joanne's got to be, you know, she's got to have a little stubborn to get out of bed in the morning, you know. Stubborn's good. I'm not trying to horn in on this. I just let the dogs.
We don't care.
Oh. Yeah.
I don't know how much time's left, so maybe Tara can tell us.
You got about 20 minutes.
Okay. All right. So I guess if there's any other questions, go ahead and we'll try to field them if you have them. If not, like I said, if you are one of the adults that's affected and has been listening in, you're welcome to join. I believe it's the 6 o'clock Central session with John and I. And like I said, I'll try to just set it up so John can do some talking and I can field some questions for you. I really appreciate everyone that's been listening. I don't have the answers. We've just lived this, so we can tell you what our journey's been. We hope and pray that there's a conference next year and I can meet some of these names that I've been looking at. I hope I can meet you, Holly and Veronica and Luann. I already know you. I should be calling you and trying to help you with some of the stuff. Texas probably has some programs for your son. And he can look into them, especially if he's still working. He would qualify for that through employment services.
Yeah, Joanne and I don't think have been to as many conferences as you and John have. But I think we've been to maybe 6 or 7 so far. But everyone that we go to, you learn something, you meet people, and a big part of ULF to me is, you know, their motto is "You are not alone," and that's true. You know, just talking to people. It doesn't have to be a formal session. Just meeting people and talking to them, and they give you ideas, and you know. Everybody has a good reason. Like John is our bad example, and you know, go from there.
Now you're going to have to explain that. So John has already, like we talked earlier, he likes challenges, and there's some famous quotes that you know, God rest Doug, but Doug and him were quite the jokesters at the conference, and there was times that we'd hear, "Uh-oh, this is going to hurt," or yeah, and we just knew, oh no, it's Doug and John. They're doing something with the chairs, or one's flipped, or it goes on and on.
Yeah, well, it's what keeps you going.
Yeah, it kind of humbles you a little bit, but it's not that bad. You get her. You get her done.
Well, one of my favorite sayings is the day started off really well. I woke up. So
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep. God's given us another chance. Do it
and
all.
Luann, I will hug Joanne for you.
Yeah, I'm reading Luann too. Do I really have to hug John, Luann? Even with the COVID, isn't that dangerous?
Oh,
You're beyond that.
Oh.
I don't know. Has anybody in our group got COVID?
That I haven't heard.
I had it in March, so.
Did you test positive?
Oh, well, yes, I tested. I didn't know, was it in March? I went to the doctor in March and he said, oh, you got something else. And March, I coughed all over for about 3 weeks. And then I found out it was the COVID afterwards. And Marge never caught it. So it's not really all that contagious either.
So when we talked yesterday about the chiropractor and we talked today, there was a session on integrative medicine. So our chiropractor practices some functional medicine too, and some nutritional. So he was able to actually nutritionally test John for the antibodies. So the antibodies were present in him. So that's when we say he was tested. That's what we mean.
So I had the virus in March, which I thought I did. I kept reading it and I said, well, I got that. And the doctor said no. So I coughed all over Marge for 3 weeks and I said she was safe, but she's got my antibodies, I guess. I don't know.
We're giving her an inoculation.
Yeah.
I've got a hardcore immune system, I guess. I don't know. It's exposed to everything, right?
I don't know. I figured if I got it, I'd get hit hard. It wasn't that bad. I mean, I didn't do a lot, but it wasn't that bad for me. But and that next person, it could be 10 times worse. So you just don't know.
So it's raining here in Ohio. I'm happy because my garden gets water now.
You guys hear the pitter patter on the steel roof? We're outside on the porch.
Yeah, and I don't think we have any more questions, so I don't know whether Tara just wants to leave us up and we'll chat back and forth.
Well, I mean, there are all kinds of frustrations. I don't know if it has to do so much with caregiving as it does to dealing with, your situations as they come up. Between parking and mobility during foul weather, and all of those type of things can always be a challenge. People that refuse to get out of your way in the grocery store, or park their car in front of you, and
John doesn't seem to have any issues with this chair that he has. So everybody's so interested in this. How he has this great balance because it's only 2 wheels. They stare at it and they're like,
I get so many people that go way out of their way to help. I've never had any problem with, people being in their way, or, accessibility to buildings. I guess that you get a little of that. But I don't know. I remember I was at a restaurant downtown Cleveland with a group, and we went in one door and it was easy, and the exit was 2 steps, and everybody's looking at me like, oh, what are we going to do with John? How are we going to do this? And I gave her full power and shot off, and they're still all laughing about it and tease me about it, but that's just, it is what it is. You just got to do what you got to do. But
one of the big drawbacks is, people will ask you, well, how'd you like to come over for dinner? Maybe not right now with the COVID thing going on.
Yeah.
And it is amazing how many houses are not accessible.
Yeah.
I know I have a friend that has retired down to Florida, and she's always posting places that are going up for sale, and they show you, you know, like 20 pictures of the house and the surroundings and all that. And you would think these are all retirement homes. None of them have I ever seen are handicap accessible. They all have steps going into them, maybe only a couple. They don't have grab bars. They all have bathtubs and no roll-in showers, no grab bars, no, you know, none of that type of thing.
I think it's one of my biggest frustration. Christmas time, everybody has a party and they all worry about me. And I, you know, average house has 2-3 steps to get in.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a portable ramp. Sometimes we bring that with us. And we have a friend of ours that builds a ramp for John every year. This year was quite a.
He made it like
He made it a little bit too steep, and John did a burnout halfway up and flipped in his chair, and we're like, "Oh no!" That was one of those. This is gonna hurt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they wouldn't let me try again.
Yeah, they wouldn't let him try again. We're like, "Yeah,
I I got this next time."
With a head start, you could have done it, John. I'm confident you could have.
Yeah, I was all the way to the top, and there was a little ledge from where the one board met the other board, and I caught on that ledge, spun out the tires, and yeah, it was pretty dramatic. But we tried something else.
Yeah,
life's full of challenges for everybody. Ours are a little more out there, I think. You know, I mean, as we get older, everything's, you know, gets to be a little more challenging.
Yep.
In actuality, probably with the COVID and the social distancing, as they start back up, I know here in New York, in our area of New York, they are just starting to open up indoor seating at restaurants. It had been all outdoor, but it was all socially distanced and that type of thing. Where some of the restaurants around here, if you would have gone into them before, it could be a challenge to maneuver a power chair through the restaurant and in between people, particularly if the tables were seated, you know, with the chairs out and all that type of thing. So maybe if they spread out the restaurants a little bit, it might be easier to get around, you know, with
we opened up probably the beginning of June. However, many restaurants were unable to truly open up, so they're still doing curbside until they build up their employees again. It took a huge dent. Now, Friday night it might have been Wednesday night this week, I stopped at BW Wings, picked up wings. But I giggled when I went in because I was like, oh, John could really maneuver in here nicely now because everything was spread out of the way. Where I totally like, we have to follow the waitress. And I'm like, yeah, he can't go through there. And she's just gone, you know. Then he just rolled around. But
this chair's not real bad. My old scooter, oh my
that
gosh.
was horrible.
Yeah.
I run into a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it was beautiful when I got it. No fiberglass scratch. And, you know, 4 months later, fiberglass hanging off. You know, I don't know. Joanne ever had it has no brakes. You let go of the throttle and it automatically brakes. You know, sometimes it's in 3 feet, sometimes it's in a foot, sometimes it's immediately. It's the stupidest system I ever. You know, someday you let go and it stops before it hits the wall, and some days you're going full blast into the wall. That's her side. Like this one, I leaned back and I got the brake. Never run into anything with it, but that one, everybody's looking at him like, whoa, what's he been drinking? You know. But
medicine.
They could
medicine.
come a long way. And
COVID hasn't changed our lifestyle too much. We're not shoppers. It hasn't, other than the fact I feel like I'm cooking and John's cooking, you know, we're cooking a lot more, I think. But other than that, we've managed. I guess I like staying home.
Yeah.
It hasn't been an issue.
Only thing I've seen, if I didn't even notice, is church. Sunday. Other than that, everything.
And we can do that online now too, so that's kind of cool too. Yeah, I've gone to many different denominations and churches on Sundays.
We
I'm well done.
do Zoom services.
Yep.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah.
I see we have like 5 minutes left, so I want to thank if our visitors that are watching, if you're still in here, thank you for coming in and listening to both Roger and I. We appreciate it. Again, we hope we get to meet you in person next year. We hope we have the conference. But I, for one, I'm pleased that the virtual was set up and we were still able to make some connections, some really good connections this year. And the sessions are going wonderfully. So thank you again if you popped in, and maybe I'll see you later in John's.
Yep. Thank you. I hope we could help.
Yep.
If nothing, a little comic relief. John, it's always good talking to you.
Yes, I enjoy you too. I appreciate it. One of these days, we're going to get up to your end of the country.
We'll make the West Wing available to you.
Oh,
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
it is,
The West Wing.
you know, when you travel, that's like I'm saying, I got people, you know, I got friends all over the United States, oh, stop by, but they're not accessible. If you got somebody that has somebody in their home that's in a wheel, you know, hey, you know, it's like, already.
I got a garden hose. What do you want?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Oh.
Close it up.